Welcome to the Haunter's Playground, the place where people who love everything spooky and scary come to play. I'm your host, your ghost host, Christopher Abram. Well, it looks like we've got Josh back again this week.
Still here, people.
You still are? Is it Gary Busey that you still hear?
No, it's Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. Who would have thought?
I can feel him.
You can feel Michael Jackson. Can he feel you? I mean, you're a little old for him.
Yeah.
Wow. So what else you got for us, Josh?
He's trying to make me do the moonwalk.
Well, fancy that.
Yeah.
So can you make or allow Michael Jackson to just flow through you?
I'm not wearing the right shoes.
Oh. No, you're not.
No.
Well, I guess maybe another time. So this week, we're going to continue our interview with David S. Friedman, the audio engineer. And once again, we are going to chop it up because it is very technical. And also, David does a lot of audio engineering on the professional. What are you doing?
No, Michael Jackson's slowly taking care of me, man. He's taking me, man.
Well, I wish you would just hurry up and get it over with so we can move on with this episode.
I hate to break it to you, buddy. He takes time.
Wow. Michael Jackson takes his time filling you up.
Not in the homophobic way.
So anyway, once again, as we get done with all these segments with David, we will post the entire interview online for those of you who want to be technically enlightened to partake. He's taking over, isn't he?
Yes, sir. My name is Michael Jackson.
Oh, I am honored I get to speak to Michael Jackson.
Billie Jean's not my lover. She's just a girl thinking I am the one.
Wow. You sound just like Michael Jackson.
I just went and beat it.
This is a thriller for me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bad. So we're going to go to our interview with David Friedman while we try to bring Josh back to reality. I read the book by Robert Rodriguez, Rebel Without a Crew, and he talks about how he borrowed a film camera while he was going to school, went down Mexico, I guess is where it was, or New Mexico, to shoot the movie. And he had a little Radio Shack cassette recorder with a Radio Shack microphone.
Right.
And he would shoot the scene, and then he would try to remember how the dialogue went with the shot that he liked. And of course, you're talking one, at the most two takes, because he didn't have enough money for, some professional big budget movies, they have 100-to-1 shoot ratio. So that means for every shot, they shoot it 100 times. When you're low budget, you don't have that luxury.
Right. Yeah.
Mostly because of time, not because of the digital age now. You're not having to pay for film and everything. But Robert Rodriguez, having that knowledge, he was able to take those pieces of junk, basically, and things that when they were trying to put the movie together in California at a studio, professional editors, they couldn't figure out what was going on, because they're like, the lips don't match for what people are saying, and that's Robert Rodriguez would cut away early. So he would get a couple of words that matched, and then he would cut away to a different shot, what he called cut away to the dog. which was, hey, we would always have a shot that we could go away to, so you wouldn't see how the lips didn't match up. And that's now what they would call that is ADR, where actors, and when I've worked with a few ADR guys, they've said, upwards to 80 to 90% of an entire movie, big budget movies, can be ADR'd.
Certainly can be. On average, if you look at the metrics from just purely an audio perspective, if you take an episodic television program, for example, on average, in the range of 20 to 30% is re-recorded in post-production, specifically the dialogue, and using an ADR technique. It's not uncommon to, have 20, 25% re-recorded in post. And certainly that changes based on the nature of the program. If it's an outdoor program, there's going to be more. If it's, a more controlled environment, there's typically less. But certainly there's a percentage in that range of dialogue that's re-recorded.
Now, I noticed back here, oh, you took it away. You had a Zoom recorder.
Yep.
I think it's the N4.
Yeah, that was the H4N, yep.
H4N.
Yep.
I have the older version of the H4.
Right.
That's one of the things nowadays, because there are such huge libraries that even low-budget filmmakers can go to where they can get, from sound effects to music, there's not as much Foley work going on. But with my last movie, I wanted to do Foley. And so I grabbed an H4. Now the mics on it are fairly decent. I've used them a lot for voiceover work.
Sure.
As long as you can mount it. If you got your hand on it, you can pick up a hand noise. But I would plug in vocal mics. That way I could put them right next to whatever, and between axe chopping and stuff like that.
Nice.
And I knew that I needed to do my Foley work in as much as I could soundproof environment. I basically went to the most interior room in the house, shut the doors, put it was a bedroom, so I took the mattress and put that in front of the door.
Right.
And then got on the floor, and it was a carpeted room, so I didn't have any extra noise, and put the mic right down next to it. And, I got axe chops, and some of the sound effects that I used, it was supposed to be a knife being sharpened. I didn't exactly like how I was using an actual whetstone to sharpen the knife, and it wasn't giving me what the sound I wanted, and I ended up using just 2 pieces of metal.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I used to hear years ago, that they would use frying bacon as the sound effect for rain.
Right.
And it's just one of those things. And so, I'm thinking people who want to do their own sound effects, because there are not sound effects that exist for certain things out there.
And like you said, the actual sound of an item, sharpening the knife, may not have the proper intensity, let's say, for whatever the scene is. So ultimately you create what is something that's realistic and believable, but it's more like a hyper reality, where it's somehow overemphasized or different in a way that makes the scene more emotional. And so in doing that, you still want to have the believability that it's metal scraping, but maybe you want it to have a certain zing, so it gives you a little scare as well. And you can do that during your Foley stage, or maybe you choose to do that in post as well, and you can layer in other sound effects with it as well that will still keep it believable but give it a bit more emotion as well.
Now, I use Adobe Creative Suite to do all my video editing, my visual effects, with After Effects, a sound booth for doing my audio.
Nice.
You, on the other hand, being an audio guy, you're going to use Pro Tools, right?
Right. Yeah, we're Pro Tools 10 is the current version, and I'm sure that will move along quickly as well as things advance. But yeah, Pro Tools is one of the main audio editors out there when it comes to professional post-production work. There's other great tools out there as well. That one has found its way to be, perhaps a de facto standard across audio post-production companies.
Now, I don't use Pro Tools, and so I don't know. But when I would talk to people years ago, you used to have to do a whole bundle. When you bought Pro Tools, you had to get other kind of equipment
Right.
that matched up with your board. And I see here, you don't have an audio board.
Right.
So
Yeah.
y'all have gone, Pro Tools has gone completely digital now.
Absolutely, yeah. The days of large consoles is gone. Both whether it's in post production or production, in terms of live audio as well. Everything's gone digital, so everything's computer based. It's software driven. You can purchase consoles. They look like consoles, but all they are very large encoders. They're really no different than the mouse that you use to drive your keyboard. It's just like having 100 little mice to control your software, but they're just, whether they're sliders or things that look like knobs, they're really just software encoders, and you're controlling the application software via these what look like a standard audio console, but really it's hooked up to your computer, and you're doing your editing and mixing via the software in the computer. Yeah.
So, if you take in how people have talked about, when CDs came out and they started talking about getting rid of vinyl records, you lose the warmth. The vinyl is so much better than a CD. And going strictly to digital now, it seems like a little bit colder of an interface.
Right.
But would you say the technology's there?
Well, there's certainly characteristics of the old analog boards that are somewhat hard to recreate in the digital world. It comes down a lot to the preamps that are used for the microphones. So whether you're editing and mixing on a complete digital system or on an old analog system, there has to be a microphone preamp in that signal chain somewhere. And the quality of that preamp in a lot of ways is what determines the warmth and characteristic of what's being recorded. So if it's dialogue that you're recording, if you have a cheap preamp in that signal flow, it's probably going to sound thin. If you have the same microphone, assume it's of a decent quality, plugged into a nice preamp, it's probably going to sound a lot warmer. And so that determines a lot of it. And then certainly in the old analog boards like the APIs or the Neves, they had a certain warmth based on their circuitry that colored the sound, but typically in a good way. And people gravitate towards that for music in particular today to replicate that, and they do that either by going back to the old analog boards, or in the digital world there's now plugins, Neve plugins, etc., that emulate that color and those warm characteristics that you can use in your digital processing. And so it's still a little different at the end of the day. It doesn't sound exactly the same, but it's pretty darn close. And I'd say that if applied properly in the digital world, it's you can achieve nearly the same warmth and quality as you could with the old boards. In the movie space and commercial space, it's perhaps maybe a little less important. You can easily achieve a great warmth in that. In music, however, I think it becomes a bit more debatable, because in music you really want to achieve this color in a way that just some of these old analog boards have, and people love it. And so at any rate, in the digital world, they now make plugins specifically to color the sound, like the Neves and the APIs, etc., that sound great. And for the majority of things, they're perfectly applicable.
And that concludes part 2 with our interview with David S. Friedman. Once again, he enlightened us with his audio engineering.
See you next week.
Who are you saying goodbye to?
Michael Jackson. He just left the building.
Okay. All right. So this week, what we decided was we were going to go ahead and we're going to highlight some haunters. If you haven't seen the Bloodshed Brothers, which I don't know how you could have missed it, these guys started as home haunters and now they've gone pro. So with that, we're just going to throw a YouTube link down here so you can go to the Bloodshed Brothers. And there's also Troy France, who has Halloween Hellmouth, who is a home haunter in his journey to become pro. And if you're pro or home haunter, these guys you want to watch, because it's a growing experience seeing them as they're moving on and developing and stuff like that. Well, at least for me, it's fun watching them grow, because being a pro haunter for over 20 years, I've kind of been there, done that, but watching them go through it and how they come to their decisions is really enlightening. So I wanted to highlight them this week.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Are we talking to Josh or
Yeah.
Gary or Michael?
Josh. Michael just left. Gary doesn't know who he is. And I'm Josh.
All right. So we have Josh back, and I guess, Josh, you have anything you want to say about this week's episode?
It was fun. Good to be back.
It's good to have Josh back. Sort of.
A little bit.
All right. So visit, if you don't already, the Bloodshed Brothers and Troy. And we want to thank you once again for coming to the playground. We'll see you next week.
Bye, Mom.